Our guest today on the podcast is Carrie Leaf. She is a psychotherapist, holistic mindset coach, hypnotherapist, and has a master's in marriage and family therapy. She is the author of the book, Therapize Yourself. And I'm so excited to have her on the podcast today. Carrie, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Okay, in the interest of full disclosure, Carrie's being a really good sport because I just started the podcast and made her start over. We've known each other for 15 minutes. She probably thinks I'm a total basket case at this point. So, because I forgot to ask my very first questions that I ask in every podcast. So, the first one, Carrie, is because we identify so much as women with the roles and titles that we hold in our life. Can you just tell us a little bit about the roles and titles that you currently hold?
Yeah. So, let's see, titles professionally, psychotherapist, holistic mindset coach, do some hypnotherapy, and then personally, daughter, sister, mother, wife. Let's see, mother to twin boys. They're 4. So that's number 1 title there. And other than that, I think that's all the titles I got coming to mind right now.
Yes, well, that's a lot. And twin boys, I have twin boy nephews, and that's a whole nother experience being a twin mom. Like I watched my sister do that, and I have a lot of respect for mothers of multiples.
Thank you. It's a wild ride.
Okay. And if you just had to describe yourself without those roles and titles, how would you kind of describe the essence of you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big question, right? Like, who am I? But the first thing that comes to mind is always curious, always wanting to grow and learn new experiences. So that is really fluid. It's ever changing. And that's kind of my MO of always wanting to self-improve and grow and learn and be a better version of myself each and every day, month, year, and so on. So really just kind of forever a student of life, I guess.
Yeah, I love that. And I get that vibe so much from the work and from other podcasts that I've listened to you on, is just kind of that openness to allow life to be your teacher,
Yeah.
without maybe judging the lessons that you have to learn, just knowing it's the lesson and we get to choose to learn from it and move forward or stay stuck in it. So yeah, another reason why I was excited to have you on today. Okay. As the author of Therapize Yourself, tell us a little bit about why you chose to write the book and the audience that you wrote it for.
Yes. Okay. So Therapize Yourself is really sums up my approach and what it is that I like to do in the level, like I said, the approach I take and what I like to focus on and what it would be like to work with me and what I find important and what I have found that works for pretty much everyone I see. And that's why, summing up kind of my step-by-step, what I walk through with people when I work with them, because over my experience, I don't even know where I'm at anymore. In between 10 or 15 years of doing this, this is what I've seen works. And then, not only in my own life, but with my clients as well. And so the book was just kind of breaking my process down step by step and putting it into words on paper, because I was repeating it over and over again in session. And it was just also that feeling of wanting, I had the most wonderful clients in the whole world. They're amazing. I learned so much from them, but it was also that feeling of just wanting to get more people on board, more people to want to empower themselves, to therapize themselves, and to take that step to self-improvement, whether it's on their own or feeling more comfortable to reach out to a professional and just, breaking down that stigma. I know people are starting to talk more and more about mental health, but it's not everyone goes about it the same way. And it doesn't mean the same things to everyone. So just kind of getting my message out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. We are both in the Midwest, and I think sometimes people are a little bit more, at least in my experience, kind of, conservative in their approach, and maybe a little bit more reluctant to admit if they do need help, and B, to actually take the step to seeking help. And so I love resources like this that give people an idea of not only, steps that they can take themselves on a daily basis, but also show that therapy is really just like you learning to understand yourself at a deeper level. And can you just talk to us a little bit about, I just want to, before we jump into some other stuff, kind of demystify what therapy might look like if somebody chose to work with you?
Yeah. And that's kind of what I try to do with the book, is make that a stepping stone of what that would look like and feel like, and what questions I'm going to ask and where we're going to go, because you're right. I mean, in the Midwest, it still is. It's looked upon differently. I lived in New York for a while, and on the East Coast, it's kind of like the cool thing to have a therapist, and it's weird if you don't, and that is not the way it is here. And that's the thing. You do not have to have, you don't have to be on the verge of a breakdown and inpatient hospitalization to come into therapy or work on yourself, or you don't have to have a severe diagnosis or something, clinically wrong. You just got to be human. You know, you just got to be human. And we all have our things in life, whether it's stress, anxiety, overwhelm, transitions, relationships, whatever. There is nobody that would not benefit from therapy or coaching. And so it's really just about meeting each person where they're at, whatever might need at that time. And then we jump in. I do have some basics that I like to, lay that foundation and groundwork, to start with, but then it's really tailored to the individual.
Yeah, I remember getting married, and I think I had the same realization in the next stage of our life when I had our first baby. And then the next kind of big life-changing thing when I went from being a full-time working mom to a full-time stay-at-home mom. I think that we forget that these major life changes and transitions that we go through, although many of them that like create so much joy and are so, wonderful, also create some conflict within us that sometimes we just need a good sounding board to help work through or work out.
Yes. Otherwise, our society in particular is pretty bad with the hustle and grind culture. I think people are starting to talk about it more now with COVID and some, with when people have maybe been forced to slow down a little bit. But when we keep ourselves so busy, we don't really take the time to see, who am I? What do I want? Am I happy? Am I sad? Am I anxious? Like, what is, we just keep going and ignore those things, but they're necessary if we want to get the most out of life and we want to be the best, mom or spouse or whatever. And you got to make that time for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember, I wish we could change, and this is a little off topic, but somewhere in our marriage thus far, we've been married, I think 15. No, I'm like, I think 15. Nice. But
Long time.
yeah, so somewhere along the road in our marriage, though, I realized that at the beginning, much of what caused conflict is that I was looking to my spouse to kind of fill in all the gaps for me in areas that I didn't feel fulfilled. Like he was going to be the complete me person, right? Every time there was a down, he was going to be my up or my filler. And I really realized, like, I wish that we would talk more about marriage as finding somebody that is willing to coach you up when you're in your down, but remind you that you are the person who has the power to fill the gaps in the holes, that they're not there to do that for you. It's not a complete me. It's who do I want to come along and kind of help coach me to raise myself?
Absolutely. We can all use some cheerleaders instead of, having to be on the defense, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a growing together. You do understand, each other better and you learn each other along the way. But if you lose yourself, then what's the point, right? That you learn from each other if you're two individuals that strengthen each other. Absolutely. It's a
Yeah.
journey. Marriage is a journey, that's for sure.
That is for sure. Yes. Very challenging and wonderfully rewarding. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
okay. So you talked a little bit about some foundation and building blocks, and one thing that I think is just kind of a common thread, and I don't know if it's January everywhere, if it's part of our Wisconsin winter right now, or if it's the new year, or if it's what feels like the 100th year of COVID, or I think we could point to a million things in our world right now that are kind of feeling unstable. Um, but there are a lot of people that I talk to right now that are struggling with anxiety or a feeling of being disconnected from themselves or their purpose or the community. Can you talk to us just a little bit about the kind of foundational pieces that you suggest that people put into their life when they're dealing with those feelings of anxiety or feeling disconnected?
Yeah, it doesn't matter what you're dealing with. I'm going to start everyone with what I just, usually refer to as going to the basics with the body. That mind body spirit connection is crucial. And a lot of times if we're coming in for therapy or coaching, we're not necessarily thinking about working on our body, but if you ignore it, we're going to have problems, or we're at the very least not going to be able to make as much progress as we could. So when I say the basics, I just want to know, how are you eating? How are you sleeping? Are you moving your body? And I don't have a one size fits all. I don't believe in a one size fits all. It's really tailored. It's really individual. Your body, your genetics, your makeup, your lifestyle, and your schedule are going to play parts, but so you've got to find your own. But there are those basics of 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night, being consistent, eating the whole healthy foods, not the processed foods, not the fast foods, and just moving that body. I mean, it could just be walking. It doesn't matter. Walk 10 minutes a day, just move the body. And just starting there, we can see huge improvements, because unfortunately the statistics on the people that aren't even doing the bare minimum there are ridiculously high, so and I'm not even pretending that's easy. I mean, I feel like it is really hard for me to eat whole foods, healthy foods, cook them, prepare them, buy them, all the things. But every little baby step that you can take in each one of those areas each day will add up, and because I don't ever want to overwhelm anybody. I'm not saying be who you are now, today, and then tomorrow eat perfect, exercise for 2 hours and sleep 9 hours. No, that's overwhelming. We can't do that. It won't work. I'm saying pick one and then start chipping away slowly but surely, and it'll build upon itself. So I just want people to start there if they want to decrease stress and anxiety and things like that, because then we'll have a better foundation that we can dig in deeper to understand what is creating the anxiety.
Yeah, I love that. I'm a huge proponent. I always say movement is my medicine. Like moving my body is my anti-anxiety. That is my stress reliever. That is my, positive things too. It's a sense of pride that I feel in myself because it's something that I'm committed to every single day. It might not look the same, but I will move.
Yeah.
And I actually I love to be outside, but it's so freaking cold right now. I mean, we're just not outside. The kids can, the wind chill's been below zero for enough days too. We're like not outside at recess, but I know that thankfully in their other like sports and activities, they get that movement. But I think we forget as adults that there's a reason why we tell kids to go outside and play. There's a reason why we sign our kids up to get physical activity. And it's not just the benefit of being part of a team. It's not just the benefit of like only little people need to move. It's like a biological need. Our bodies need to move in order to like not only process our food and nutrition, but process our emotion and our thoughts, you know?
Yeah, that fresh air and that connection with nature, they're powerful. And I lived in New York City for a while, and that experience really taught me the difference of how I feel, standing in the middle of a city in concrete and cars honking and tons of people versus, a quiet like forest or meadow or whatever, and walking through the woods on trails. Like, they're completely different feelings. And you've got to definitely find where you connect and where your environment, where it brings out the best in you. But I mean, there are definitely tons of studies done on, fresh air, sunlight, nature, just being good and healthy for us. They talk about taking your shoes off and connecting with the earth, right? Bare feet and feeling that energy.
Yeah. Because typically during the summer, I, work out, lift weights, do something more intense. But then at night, at the end of the day, when I've done all my work and I've been a mom and wife and all those other things, I go and just try to walk outside for like 20 minutes to calm my brain, process whatever I, am working through in my head, or just get the fresh air and the peace. And I found that particularly in the winter months, that's one thing that leads to more anxiety for me, because I don't have that. It's not necessarily the being outside, but it's the decompression time. So I've actually just been walking on the treadmill at night, like slow pace, just walking, either listening to a podcast or listening to music or watching a show or something, and just walking, because I find like if I can just get myself to decompress in that way, mentally, I'm so much better even the next day, because I gave myself some time to process.
Yes, that actually is the exact same one I do in the winter here too. I'll go to the gym and take the kids and let the boys do the play center, and I'll walk on the treadmill there too. It's nothing strenuous, nothing, too much too long. It more is that mind body connection and to release and to just clear the brain. And it makes a big difference. There's, the bilateral stimulation when you're moving that body and you're thinking and you're processing it, you're able to get to those deeper level thoughts, and you can make more sense of what's going on with you. So I definitely recommend it.
Yeah. What about mindfulness? It's kind of like a trendy term and a thing to that a lot of people are talking about, and obviously impacts positively your mental health. Can you kind of explain what that means to people in terms of like being present in their life?
Yeah. And I think that people's understanding of mindfulness is going to be, different, or their experience with it is going to be different. But at the end of the day, mindfulness is being present in the present moment, not dwelling on the past, not worrying about the future, not thinking about 30,000 different things. If I'm not being mindful, if I'm not present, I'm maybe talking to you right now, but I'm thinking about what I'm going to do for supper tonight. It's bringing it down to that one thing, giving that one thing all my time and attention and energy. People think it's like clearing your thoughts, your brain entirely. That's not possible. But to gain control over our thoughts and regulate them, and choose where we're going to go with them, pick that one thought and stay there and clear the rest out. And then when our mind wanders, which it always will, being able to catch it and bring it back time and time again. And then I think probably one of the biggest, most important parts of mindfulness that people overlook or forget about is that it's being able to do that in a compassionate and non-judgmental way. So I always use the dishes as my example, because I see the dishes and they irritate me and they're there every day, all the time. And I get so sick of them. So I see the dishes, they irritate me, but I have a choice, right? What am I going to do with that thought? I can't control that the thought pops up that like, oh, the dishes again, here we go. Why doesn't my husband put them in the dishwasher? Whatever, right? So like I could either hang on to that and get mad at him and like frustrated and be short with my kids and have a bad night, or I can stay in that moment and not judge the situation. The dishes are just the dishes. They don't have to be bad. They don't have to be good. They don't have to be anything. They're just the dishes. And if I just do the dishes, they generally take about 2 minutes and they're not that bad as what I said they were in my head, right?
Yeah.
So it's being in that moment, only focusing on the dishes, not judging them as bad, and just one thing at a time, right? But that non-judgmental and that compassionate piece are pretty big, and it's training the brain to do that. It's a practice. You can't do it once and then wonder why you're not mindful in other aspects of your life. It's just like I can't go to the gym once a week and wonder why I'm not losing weight. These are practices, consistency, and training the brain.
I'm so glad that you said that, because we're far enough into the year now where if people did set a resolution, like we're into February. So if it was something that you expected to accomplish overnight, you've probably quit by now, right? Because you're like feeling disappointed. And I just was thinking this morning, so one of my goals for the year is to run. And the only reason why I want to do it is to just prove to myself that I can, because I've always been like, oh, I'm not a runner. Oh, I wasn't made for running. Like all that's like, that's silly. It's just silly. Right. And you're too slow. And then if it's all the stuff that we tell ourselves that, I can't go from just taking long walks to running a half marathon. Like
Right.
there has to be some sequential buildup. I think that we forget that sometimes the things that we're trying to train our mind to do take the same sequential buildup, or sometimes I think probably a longer period of time to grow a skill than it does with our physical self. To be able to have that thought process control and be able to pull ourselves back to the present instead of constantly looking into the future and the what ifs and getting so wrapped up and anxious about what could be, instead of just being able to pull ourselves back and focus on what is. That takes some training. It takes being mindful.
It takes a lot of training, repetition, mindfulness. And prior to that, it takes undoing or unlearning or unwiring whatever was in our way, because, and this is kind of where like my bread and butter for my practice is identifying those negative belief systems that we've developed. You threw, some out. I'm not a runner. I'm not built for this, things like that. The stories we tell ourselves, and then they get ingrained. We have to detach from those and unlearn those so that we can replace them with more positive ones. And that's a process. First, we got to be able to identify it in the first place, because they're, subconscious most of the time. And then we've got to dig in and figure out, why am I doing this? Where is this coming from? Now, genetically, I've taken a DNA test, which definitely confirmed that I am not an endurance person. I'm not built, because of the way that like my blood circulates and flows and oxygen in my body. I am not built to run very far or swim very far or whatever. And I've always been a sprinter. But what I had told myself was like basically that I couldn't run more than a block. And then I did the Couch to 5K app, and I'm running 5Ks, and I'm like, well, let's running. I'm jogging. Like, let's be real. But I did it, right? And that was a huge accomplishment. But I had to, that Couch to 5K app is amazing, because it breaks it up to little bits and pieces, and over time, and build upon each other. And it's a perfect example of how we get to other things in our life. It doesn't happen overnight. If we try to do it overnight, it'll backfire.
Yeah. And I think too, as adults, we just get out of practice with doing things that we're not good at. I mean, you choose your career based on things you feel like you could be successful at. You probably repeat the meals that everybody loves, we
Yeah.
do all of these things. If I had a choice about the activities, we would choose to do as a family, I would probably keep choosing the same thing over and over because I like the way a certain activity feels for all of us. But I think that's why sometimes making these bigger changes in our life are so difficult, because we shy away from looking at things that we haven't mastered or we're not good at.
Yeah, because that'll intertwine with, like I said, the stories that we've told
Yeah.
ourselves, or how we feel about ourselves or our identity. And usually it's only a problem because of what we're telling ourselves, which is something negative. We're beating ourselves up. I'm not good at that, or I look stupid, or whatever it may be. So it's going to be that mindset shift first. But you're right, when we're younger, we're kind of being trained in that process of learning and taking things slow. And then if you haven't been in school in a while, you get out of that process. So
Yeah.
it's a journey, and it takes time. And so that grace and compassion for yourself is important, that flexibility in thinking and mindset.
Yeah. I used to get mad when I first started therapy after I had pretty severe postpartum with our second child. And I was always kind of like, I can do it myself. I've got it. I'm going to outwork it. I'm just going to keep grinding and all the stuff will go away. Well, as you know, that didn't just go away. I needed, I needed some help. So, but one of the things I used to get so mad at is that my therapist would say, Erin, until you are able to give yourself grace, you are not, even though you feel like you are not really giving it to others. You can't. Because the story you tell yourself, you subconsciously are saying that same thing about somebody else, probably not to their face.
Mm-hmm.
But it made me examine things like, why I couldn't rest on the weekend. Well, the story I was telling myself was that like my worth was wrapped up in always working and doing something. So I would be completely exhausted of working full time, two small children. On the weekend, I would be like trying to do everything in the house and the meals and still be a mom and, still try to fit exercise in and still try to do the self-care stuff. And then I realized that one of the reasons why I was feeling so resentful about my husband was that he could rest.
Yes. And it sounds like a good therapist, because you know what we're doing, she's talking about you projecting your stuff onto your husband or anyone else. And we all do it. We all do it, but it's not always easy to see. We're doing it all the time, but it's not easy to see. But yeah, she was absolutely right. That grace that, there's no way, like you said, whether you're saying it to your husband or not, you're thinking it and you're feeling it, and that resentment can build up on a subconscious level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she just said, she's like, Erin, he's meeting a need that you wish you could meet for yourself. And you're
Yeah.
watching him do it. And you're like mad that he's gotten to a point where he can let himself rest and you
Yeah.
can't, so I just love the awareness that working through some of these things that really are at like a base level, fairly simple, they can just give you so much more joy, really, in like your daily life, because you're able to let go of whatever was kind of holding you in a spot that you don't really belong anymore, that you've outgrown.
Yeah, your central piece there with what you shared would be that, like, your worth being tied up into doing and being busy and productive. And so there's a I am feeling, and they're not good enough if I'm not working or busy, or I'm not successful or whatever. And those are where we want to pinpoint, highlight, and then we want to understand why, where did that come from? And we want to detangle that, and then we can rewrite it. So, but yeah, it is, like you said, can seem so simple when you lay it out there, but when the neurons have been firing in that same way over and over and over for most of your life, it is not, you can know, you're like, oh, I should stop doing that, like, or thinking that, or like feeling that way. It's a lot easier said than done. You really got to dig in and practice the other train of thought until it has been repeated enough to replace the other one.
Yeah. And do you think there's something to like over therapizing yourself, kind of overthinking all of these things, and that maybe ever keeps us from actually taking action and making significant change?
Yeah, I mean, anytime we're overwhelmed, people respond differently, but if we're overwhelmed, stressed out, we're going to go into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, right? And so that's going to look different for everybody. Some people are going to shut down. Some people are going to just be irritable. Some people are going to go into overproduction, and then some people are going to do the perfection, pleasing everybody thing. And so we're going to go into one of those, and it's not good for our body. It creates inflammation in our body. So the overthinking, the overanalyzing, the getting overstimulated, whatever it may be, we do need to push pause, stop, breathe, come back in our body. And the biggest thing with that is going to be reminding ourselves, well, one, the coming back into the body and the breathing and grounding your body is just super crucial and key to, grounding and slowing down, but also knowing the difference between what's within my control and what isn't. That it's just when we're feeling overwhelmed, it's generally because we're taking on things that are not within our control, and we're spinning around in that hamster wheel trying to control them, and it's literally impossible, and we wonder why we're tired because we'll never win that battle, so recognizing, it's like, if you've heard the serenity prayer, that first verse, it's just perfect when it comes to anxiety, identifying what is and isn't within your control, and then having the courage to face the things you can, and what is it? I can't, now I'm blanking on it, but letting go of the things you can't control, and right. And that will help us to, it's not easy. Again, it's one of those things that's easier said than done, but you really got to push that pause button, step back and think about what is in control, my control, and what's not. And honestly, that at the end of the day, the answer is easy, because the only thing within your control is yourself. That's it. Literally, you cannot control your husband, your children, the school, your job, but you cannot control anything but yourself, your own thoughts, moods, feelings, actions. That's what you can control. And so when we point the finger back at ourselves, we're going to be more productive. We're going to see more results, because that's where we can make a change. Otherwise, you can try to change your husband and, all day, every day, and good luck with that, right? I've tried. I try a lot. I try all the time, but it doesn't get me anywhere good.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Two things you just said that were kind of like little light bulbs for me. When we have all this going on in our mind that's not dealt with, we're really doing something physically to our body, inflammation. And I mean, can you just speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, that mind body connection is just overlooked, but they're so strongly interconnected. It goes both ways. If I'm stressed and I'm anxious and I'm not sleeping and I'm always in fight or flight, I am creating inflammation in my body, and inflammation is going to lead to pretty much all the illnesses out there, diabetes, cancer, whatever, autoimmune disorders. But a lot of times the more immediate effects that you'll see will be like IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, your tummy's upset, you got aches and pains, your neck and shoulders are tight, you got headaches. Like, those are going to be the ones you see early on. But if you don't manage that stress and that anxiety, then you will see the more severe diagnoses down the line, so. And it goes the other way too. If you don't take good care of your body and your gut health is off, there's so many you could have a food sensitivity. You could be eating things that don't sit well with you, and they're going to show up like mental health problems. One that really stood out to me was I was having brain fog for like, it just was going on and on and on, and allergy symptoms. And this is so weird. Like, and it was dragging on for like 9 months. And I'm like, this can't, I have to do something, but I had no idea where it was coming from. And I end up finding that I have a food sensitivity to oats. And it lined up perfectly that I decided I loved oat milk, and I was putting oat milk in my coffee every single morning. I really liked it. And then, and then I cut it out. And what do you know? A few days later, the brain fog's gone, so that mind body, like, we've got to look from every angle. You got to take care of the body to have a good, healthy mind. And you've got to take care of the mind to have a healthy body.
Okay. I love that. Thank you. And then, one other topic I just want to touch on, and you just made me think of it when you were talking about what's in your control. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. One of the things I am most anxious about is my kids. Like, I didn't sleep well last night. We've just had, everyone's been sick on and off, I feel like, really for this entire school year. And you like can't cough in public. So we've been home a lot more when, when normally I probably would have been like, oh, you're fine. Just go, you're good. And so I think, one of the hardest things to do as a parent is to remind yourself that it is not only not your job to take on anything that might create some discomfort for your child, but you're really doing your child and yourself a complete disservice by taking on anything that might cause them discomfort. Because we all know, like, that's what causes growth. That's how we grow. We have to be uncomfortable. We have to learn how to problem solve. We have to learn that we're capable of going through hard things, and figuring it out. But that being said, how do we create these? Do you have any tips that you talk to parents about creating these same foundational building blocks for their kids as they're growing, so that maybe they're not sitting like me at 40, working through some of these things, like, oh, whoa, this part of my foundation was wrong. I need to, reinforce this with some better habits. Do you have some things that you talk to parents about?
Lead by example. You can't prevent your kids from sitting there at 40 working through their own stuff, because they will have their own stuff, right? Because it's all you could be perfect, literally perfect, which is impossible, but you could be perfect, and your kids will still internalize things that their friends said, or that they saw in a movie, or that a car wreck they saw, or what. They're still going to go have life happen and go through life. And so they are still going to sit down at 40 and be working on things. It's not about whether you can shield them or prevent them from having issues to work on, because we all got them, no matter how good or easy or hard our life was. What's most important is that you're helping set the example and helping them create the life skills and the coping skills to handle the problems. So if they are brought up seeing you work out, eat well, talk about feelings, get good sleep, and have healthy patterns, and then that's just what they've always grown up doing, they don't have to try to rewire something that was completely different when they're older. They already got that foundation. Now, 20s, college years, whatever, they might go askew, and then they're going to feel it, they'll feel it, and hopefully they'll come back to their default mode of what they were taught and shown when they were growing up. So really leading by example and teaching good, healthy coping skills in that sense. And I can't stress enough, like, parents, we don't want to put adult stuff on to our kids. We don't want to talk to them about our feelings and our stress and our anxiety. They're children, not our therapist, but we want to promote talking about feelings in general, getting comfortable sharing what you're thinking and you're feeling in the family. Otherwise, I mean, I got boys, and the last thing I want to do is teach them that they don't cry and they don't talk about feelings and they should stuff it all in, because yep, then they will be dealing with that at 40, right? And like I said, we can't prevent it all, but we can teach good, healthy coping skills.
Gosh, I love everything you just said. I love it. As a mom raising two boys, I feel the exact same way. I just want them to know that all of whatever feeling it is that they're having, that it's normal. And
Yes.
whatever it is, even if it's something that they, can't stand that I do or whatever, that this is a house where we can all talk about that in a way that's respectful and doesn't back anyone into a corner, but gives people room to like feel it out and grow through it. And I love everything that you just said.
They're gonna learn how to communicate and share feelings and work through problems through you and their dad. And that is how they will communicate in their dating relationships and their marriages as well, right? So if we
Amen.
keep it surface level and we don't talk about feelings and we don't communicate much, they will have those problems in their marriage as well, So yes, we just model what we want for them and know that we're going to screw it up.
Yeah,
Like,
that's the other,
right?
that is the other best piece of advice I think my therapist ever gave me was like, when I'm like, how do I, it was one of those conversations where I was spinning about like, I'm screwing it up and they're going to be sitting in a therapist's office when they're older, working through whatever I did to them. And she's like, they will, because no matter what you do, you can't process this for them. You can't decide how they internalize it. You can do your very best and you're still going to screw something up because you're not the same person. You don't have the exact same need. And that's good.
Right. Right. And to think that like, if our kids, may struggle a little bit, like you said earlier, like that is where they have the opportunity to learn and grow. If it's always easy, sheltered, handed to them, and we're enabling them, then we are creating little entitled narcissists. And I don't think that's what any of us are going for. Right?
Yeah,
So,
I
yeah.
totally agree.
Yes, it is hard and we'll question everything. So when you mess up, apologize and counterbalance and keep it moving.
Yeah. Well said. I love that. You have a hard job because you take on so much of what everyone else is trying to work through. But I also think that, and I'm putting words in your mouth here, but you probably have a really rewarding job too, because as somebody who's a former teacher, I feel like that's really what you're doing for adults in this real world context is you're the teacher, and you're helping people work through and find their aha moments and learn new habits and patterns. And I think the work that you do is really incredible. So I just want to say that.
Thank you. And as a teacher, then yeah, you get it too. You are helping and healing and molding too. And you probably know, just like with my clients, with your students, I learn just as much from them as they do from me, right? It's the relationship and it's the exchange of energy, and yep, it goes both ways.
Yeah. Okay. The last question I always ask my guests is, most of the time, the things that we spend our life or our areas of passion, it's something that we're working on, about ourselves. We're all kind of finishing the job of raising ourselves. And the work that you're doing, I would imagine, is helping you raise some part of you. So what part of you are you raising through your work?
Oh, all the parts. because we're constantly changing, and when I think I got like, oh yeah, I've made some growth in that, something else will trigger it or pop up, around there. But I would say in the book I talk a little bit about strong negative belief of I'm not good enough. I didn't really go into depth of where that came from, but I have worked on that, but I still always have to continue to work on the I'm not good enough piece. And I would say another one that, pops up regularly that I need to buckle down a little bit more on is that vulnerability and weakness piece. Like, as the helper, as the healer, it is easier for me to take what I know and help others, and in avoidance of looking at myself and dealing with myself, and stay busy and help and heal everybody else, and neglect that part of myself, because it is hard, it is painful. So I've got to practice what I preach, and get in there. I'm the therapist that avoided therapy for so long, and I'm in it, and I jump in and out, based on life and what's going on and schedule and all the things. But it's something that I need to, just get back in more consistently and dig deeper in that vulnerability piece. So those are mine right now. They'll be different next week and next year, but
yeah, but I love that too, because it's even helping demystify the fact that like going to therapy or just finding one person that has all the answers. And really it's just, we're all human, right? You just have a special gift to help us work through being human. So
yeah, we all got our stuff. It doesn't matter what life we had handed or what we've been through or what age we are. We've all got stuff that we're dragging along and working on.
Okay. So if they want to buy your book and maybe even sign up for some coaching or work with you, tell us about where we can find you.
Yeah, so the book is on Amazon, and there's link to that and information, and on my podcast and coaching and all those things on my website, which is carrieleaf.com, and then Instagram at Carrie Leaf Coaching. I'm terrible with social media, but Instagram, my website, and Amazon are going to be the top spots.
Yeah. Well, and you have a beautiful website, so easy to navigate. I'm like, doing my little research, reading about you, and
Thanks.
yeah, so people will be able to find that for sure. And I know that they will be, racing to their Amazon for overnight shipping on Therapize yourself. Thank you for making this conversation so approachable and sharing your expertise with us, and probably giving me a little therapy in the process. So I appreciate you very much.
Yes, and you today are going to give yourself the gift of rest, right? Since you didn't get much sleep last night, you will give that grace.
Yeah, thank you. Good reminder. Good reminder. I will.
Yes,
I
it's
will.
been my pleasure talking with you. Thank you so much for having me.